Caitlin Clark debuts at number 10 in Sportico's highest paid female athletes list, bringing in $11.1 million in total earnings. We will never pay dinner when we go out with her again.
Ever.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm sure you're noticing a little difference. I'm reporting to you somewhat live from the Vox Media studios, but Megan is in LA. Megan, what are you doing? Where are you?
We're sadly apart. We're so often together. I was in LA for one of my old teammates and very good friend Lynn Williams' wedding to her husband Marley. It's basically just like soccer camp reunion. It's so funny. People from like all different spans, people I played with, people I played against. Obviously a lot of their friends and family, but they had a beautiful ceremony yesterday up in Malibu. We danced our little faces off. We cracked up. Sonnet and Rose played a prank on me, which is just standard operating behavior.
Sounds about right.
They hid my bag.
Which bag?
My little purse that I brought.
Was there anything important? Would you have like lip stuff in it?
Yes, I wanted stuff out of it bad.
For those that don't know, Megan will bring like a big rolly bag and it'll have one thing in it. You love carrying. I shouldn't even go rolly bag. You'll bring like a huge like pocketbook.
Tote, yeah.
And there'll be like her keys in it.
My chest.
But it goes with the outfit.
Honestly, unless I have a belt loop and then I'm hooking the keys onto the belt loops, then sometimes there's honestly a chapstick in there, and it's like this is in my huge, bag. It's
so hopefully the tricks didn't get you too bad.
Yeah. Well, were you so sad all weekend without me? Were you just crying yourself to sleep or what?
So sad. So sad that I slept better than I have in weeks. So sad that I ate what I wanted to eat, watched the shows that I wanted to watch. But I also did go to Barclays to check out the Women's Champion Classic. And that's sadly why I was unable to get out to LA to join you in celebrating Lynn and Marley. So congratulations to them.
I did have a minor mishap in the whole wedding situation.
Ugh.
I obviously got the invite forever ago. I punched the RSVP for us both. I think I was actually the first one. Lynn was like, you were the first one. I didn't put it in my calendar. And so it obviously didn't exist. So like 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Rose Lavelle and she was talking about the wedding. And I was like, oh my, when is it? I like didn't forget that it was happening, but I did forget because it wasn't in my calendar. And that's why Sue couldn't go. It was like literally all my fault.
I told
everyone you didn't want to make the effort. I told everyone it was your fault. No.
Way to have my
Everyone
back.
obviously knew it was my fault. Well, I'm Megan Rapinoe and this is Sue Bird. This is A Touch More. Let's get into it. Support for A Touch More comes from L'Oréal Paris. Every holiday season, you always hope that it's finally a stress-free one. One can only hope, but L'Oréal Paris is here to help. They create products to gift and to use that allow women to feel their best in any season. So no matter what the holidays hold, L'Oréal's got your back because you're worth it. Stay tuned to hear about some of our favorite L'Oréal Paris products later in the episode. The check-in, everybody. Big WNBA news. There's been like a nice trickle of WNBA news throughout this entire offseason, but the Golden State Valkyries held their expansion draft. They selected 11 players in the draft. The most notable ones, Kate Martin from the Aces, Kayla Thornton from the Liberty, and Temi Fagbenle from the Fever. Sue, what do you think of the roster? How it's shaping up? We obviously have free agency and draft still to come, but give us your thought. I have a lot of questions I feel like that you have answers to. I just don't understand a lot of what's going on. So tell me, but tell the people.
Yeah, I thought they did great. I think there's some stuff that, jumps out. There's some questions that come up, but I think for the most part, they did a really good job. The picks that I liked were definitely Kayla Thornton, Zandalicini from Minnesota, Monique Billings, I thought was a great pickup. I think with Thornton and Zandalicini, what makes those picks interesting, though, is you can see why the Valkyries would want these players. They are championship-level players. Both were on teams that were in the finals last year. But that also then begs the question, like, the New York Liberty lost somebody who averaged 20 minutes a game, a big guard, like a 3-and-D, which means she can shoot threes. She can virtually guard anybody on the court. 3-and-D is a really important role to fill. So losing that hurts the Liberty. I also think even though Zandalicini, last time I checked, only averaged about 12 minutes, she's really efficient in her minutes, especially from three. She shoots 44% from three.
Whoa.
So great pickups for the Valkyries. Both are on like fairly low contracts, which is also a plus. But then it does make you wonder, like, what are these teams that are returning from final appearances? What are they going to do to replace those players? I also, like I said, I think Monique Billings is a great pickup. She was their one unrestricted free agent pick, which I know we're going to get into later. So this just means that they now have her and can core her. So they essentially have her on their roster now, as opposed to Phoenix, and they have the ability to core her. It doesn't mean they will. She could sign there for any amount of money if she wants to stay. She can also test free agency. But like I said, it just means the Valkyries have the right to keep her and core her, which means, as we've talked about before, they have to pay her the max. And I think that that decision will get made like somewhere after the new year, like let's call it the January 10s, like 10th, somewhere in there. So that's kind of what stuck out. I think the big surprise for most people was that Temi Fangbeli was even available. Obviously, it means the Fever didn't protect her, but I don't know. When you look at it, new coach, which likely means new style, which means who knows, who they value, who they don't value. And it's not to say Temi doesn't have value. It's just at some point you have to make decisions. So obviously, she didn't make the cut in that way, but there's a lot of, in my opinion, great options at that 4 spot in free agency for the Fever. So maybe for Indiana, it was like, okay, we have a tough decision to make. They have a crap ton of money to use in free agency. So they might be able to replace Temi in their minds in free agency. So that was a surprise, but wasn't at the same time. And again, I think a great pickup for the Valkyries. You can clearly see they wanted to get players that have experience. They wanted to get players that, Coach Natalie even said, like, are battle tested. So they did that. I think last but not least, forget every player they picked, and we could go down the list even more. What they did and why this was such a success is they got talent. They got players that have been on championship teams, whether that's in the WNBA or overseas. And they also now have still a huge amount of cap space for free agency. So I think check. Ohima did a killer job, the GM there.
Well, that's honestly something that is not talked about a lot, is the talent in the front office. So it seems like they did a very good job putting together the team in a way that is showing, their sort of experience in the front office. But obviously it comes, down to the players. And what's going to be required of this expansion team? They're going to have to play with a lot of grit. They're going to be tough. You said they got battle tested players. What kind of grit is going to have to happen for this team to even be good? They're sort of already at a disadvantage being an expansion team.
The last time there was an expansion draft was the Atlanta Dream, and I was in the league for that. So I can definitely tell you what I remember about the Dream back then. But the one thing that is different, I'll start here, it's just a different WNBA. Free agency is different. The salaries and the salary cap is different. There's just a lot more movement to be had. So what we're seeing is not the final Valkyrie team. So what I'm about to say might not even apply. But what I remember from the Atlanta Dream was they didn't lack for talent, right? An expansion team's not going to lack for talent. It's just going to be talent that's put in different roles. So it's going to be a lot of players who maybe weren't starters on their previous team and now are going to be asked to start. It's going to be a lot of players who maybe, I'm making this up, average 6 shots, and now they're going to be asked to average 15 shots. Sometimes what happens, though, is players, when given a bigger role, given more minutes, given more opportunity, given a longer leash, they end up surprising you. They end up showing you something. I wouldn't be surprised if there's players that when they joined an expansion team ended up becoming all-stars because their output just increases. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but it's also going to be a team that at the end of the day, when they're competitive in games, which they will be, it's not like they're going to go out there and get smashed every single night. Of course, sometimes. I mean, blowouts happen. They're not going to go out there and get smashed every single night, but they're going to be missing, potentially, or I should speak in the past, what they were always missing was like that perennial all-star, like ultimate bailout. Fourth quarter comes and this player takes over because they're just that good.
Just put the ball in their hands. Yeah.
They're like the Asia Wilsons, the Brianna Stewarts. You know what I'm talking about. So they're not going to have that player. But that's in the past. And like I said, with the Valkyries, their cap space, with a new WNBA system, you don't know. It's possible. They could throw some money at some players. And they might end up getting that player. So TBD on that.
Okay. One thing that I noticed, obviously being from Seattle, no one from our team got picked.
Yeah.
What's happening? I don't understand
it's a big
why.
Drama and conspiracy.
Tell me the conspiracy. This feels targeted conspiracy. Again. I'm being targeted a lot today.
Yeah. There's nobody from the Storm got picked. Just a little FYI, I believe the Valkyries had the opportunity, I guess, to pick one player from every team. So the max amount of players they could pick was 12. They did not have to pick. I don't know that there was a minimum. That's something that I'm trying to find out. Maybe it's 0. Maybe they didn't have to pick anybody. But point being, of course, they were going to pick players, but there wasn't some rule saying they had to pick from every team no matter what. So with that, a lot of jokes have been had on the Storm's behalf, which is cool. I don't mind opening up my social medias and seeing some trollery every now and then. But this one is a little misguided. So very quickly, when you break down the Storm roster, it goes like this. And listen, what we're about to get into, I can never detach myself from being in the Storm ownership. But at the same time, what I'm about to say, I actually don't have 100% certainty on. I'm not in the war rooms. I'm not in the conversations. I am just an investor in the Storm. With that being said, I'm gonna go out on a limb.
Give me your thoughts.
And say that they protected Jewel, Skylar, Ezzy, Gabby, Jordan, and Nika. I'm pretty confident in that, and I'll tell you why. Nneka, as we've discussed before, did not need to be protected. She's an unrestricted free agent who cannot be cored. Her cores have been used, therefore basically ineligible. So that was great for the Storm. Got them an extra spot. You might say that that's why they were able to protect Nika. Okay, moving on to the rest of the roster. Mercedes Russell, Sammy Wickham, Victoria Vivians, and Joyner Holmes. All of these players are unrestricted free agents. So in a sense, they're almost in this other pot. So if they were left unprotected, they're now in this other pot of players that's unrestricted free agents. And the Valkyries could only pick one. So
league-wide.
League-wide.
Across the whole league, they can only pick one.
All the unrestricted free agents who have the ability to be cored, they could only pick one. Okay. So once they pick, now I don't know the order of events, but the Valkyries, I'm assuming, assessed this. And once they landed on Monique Billings being the player that they wanted within, on their roster, and that they wanted the ability to negotiate with and the ability to core, if it got to that, no guarantee there, it was her. I don't view this as a slap in the face to Sadie's, Sammy, Vivian's, or Joyner at all. It's just, we chose Monique Billings for this. These are still very good players, very good role players, the whole nine. So it's not some big slap in the face. If anything, you could argue that the Storm front office did a great job to be set up in this way. They basically set up this roster, and I don't know if it was on purpose, but let's say it was. They basically set up a roster where you were only going to take one if you wanted to, worst case scenario, core them.
Yeah. Okay, so you were able to leave some players unprotected, knowing that the likelihood that you're kind of like playing the game within the game.
Yeah, I would. Now, listen, if they had taken Mercedes Russell, that would have made sense to me. That would have been a great pick too. But like I said, they chose Monique Billings, who has an amazing story. For those that aren't familiar, I mean, last year she started the season essentially not on a roster. She got cut in training camp, I believe, or maybe very early in the season, not on a roster, and only got back in the league because the Dallas Wings had some injured players. So she's only on the Dallas Wings she's a replacement player. She's an injury replacement player. So she's on there for a very short time. No guarantee there. Once that player comes back, you're out. And then she finds herself in Phoenix and finishes the season there. So it's really a cool story of a player that was almost out of the league and now very much back in and very much in a really good position. I think being on an expansion team is exciting. And not only that, she can either go find whatever team she wants or maybe get cored. So she's in a great spot. So I really love that story. But back to the storm for a second while we're on the subject. Obviously, Megan and I know what's been going on, in the news around the storm and the allegations and the investigation. And then, of course, the Chicago Sun-Times reporting that Jewel is asking for a trade. We see it. We see you guys in our comments wanting us to talk about it. But I think we're just going to keep it real. Like, I am a part of ownership. So there are just things that at times legally I can't speak on. And Megan can in some ways, but
I don't know anything. Yeah. I want to know more.
We want to know. I know what's funny is I joke. I'm like,
too.
Now that I'm in ownership, I know less.
No, seriously. I'm like, Stu, give me the drama. No, there's none.
No, there's none. Yeah. So basically what you've been seeing online or reading is exactly what we have known. But as an owner, did want to have that investigation finish, did want to let the dust settle in a way before speaking on it publicly. But again, a lot of that is ownership, legal matters. But we did want to just acknowledge it. And yeah, we'll all be waiting to see how it ends up. Support for A Touch More comes from L'Oreal Paris. As professional athletes, both Megan and I had close-ups of our sweaty, flushed, occasionally dirt-covered faces broadcasted to millions. I personally think I look pretty glowy with sweat dripping down my face, but having a skincare and makeup routine full of excellent products has allowed me to feel confident in my skin no matter its state, and no matter how close the cameras decide to be. L'Oreal Paris sent us some products to try, and I have to be honest, after rewatching some interviews in like my final season, I was noticing how I think I have droopy eyebrows. My eyebrows droop, they're thinning out. I don't know if this is an age thing. Okay. So I was really psyched that they sent me both a brow stylist definer, give me a little something, but also a brow lamination. So it's keeping those brows up. You got to train those things.
Me personally, I have my blonde hair. It takes a lot of upkeep. The purple conditioner, the Everpure, sulfate-free, really just like keeps me looking poppin', keeps the yellow and the brassy out, keeps me right the whole time. So I'm excited about that. L'Oreal Paris makes products that gives you confidence to glow on and off the pitch, sweaty face or not. Send L'Oreal Paris products to those you love. You can find your new favorite L'Oreal Paris products on Amazon.com.
Fox Creative.
This is advertiser content from Google Pixel. Y'all know that Sue and I love a good bicker. I mean, we're former professional athletes. We're both, a bit competitive. Usually we have to end our bickers in a tie because we've never had a referee to decide on a winner. Until today. Thankfully, Google Pixel has a feature called Gemini Live that's great for helping you brainstorm ideas, or even in our case, help settle a debate using just your voice. Okay, Gemini.
I'm excited.
Hi, Gemini. What tortillas are better, flour or corn?
That's a tough one, since the best tortilla really depends on your taste and what you're making. Some people like the classic corn tortilla for tacos, while others prefer the softer, chewier flour tortilla for burritos. What kind of dish are you thinking about?
Well, we're thinking about making breakfast tacos for this particular time.
In that case, corn tortillas might be your best bet. They have a sturdier texture that holds up well to all those yummy breakfast fillings. Plus, they have a great corn flavor that pairs perfectly with eggs and cheese. You can warm them up in a dry skillet, or even in the oven for a minute or two, to make them extra pliable.
What do you think? I feel like it's pretty clear. I mean, it's corn, like I said. Like I've been saying.
Next.
Glad we got that one solved. Thanks, Gemini, for solving that bicker of the week. Moving on. They say it's artificial intelligence, but I don't know. Sounds genuinely brilliant to me. Thank you, Gemini Live, for finally proving who is the genius of this relationship. You can learn more about Gemini Live and Pixel 9 Pro at the Google Store. For Gemini Live, sequence is shortened, results for illustrative purposes, and may vary. Check responses for accuracy. Compatible with certain features and with certain accounts. Internet connection required. Available on select devices, languages, and countries. Only available to users 18 and older.
And now we're going to switch gears to college basketball. I was like
Let's bring the kiddos in.
Yeah, I was like a college basketball junkie this past week. I mean, almost every game that I talked about last week, I watched.
You had your college sweatshirt on for your big college basketball weekend.
Yeah.
You're actually from college sweatshirt, which is, you've kept it.
Extra, extra, extra large, but it's not. It's really like a medium, but it fits the fit of it, I'm like, either
So
I
perfect.
weighed 50 more pounds or this was the style. I think it was the style. Although I was smashing grilled cheeses in college.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
it's a
it had- I
dairy
thought it,
farm.
like,
I mean,
had-
ice cream.
Honestly, it's like, if you would have asked me, I was like, this is nutritional. I was like I thought I was eating right. I was doing right.
Yeah, you got a carbo load
Oh my
basically
God.
all day,
the
every
amount
day.
of grilled cheeses I ate.
The sweatshirt is cool, though.
It is very cool. And the best part, and we're going to get to me attending those games at Barclays, the very best part was when I walked in. So I was already at, UConn played the second game, so I was already there. But I actually had to kind of walk behind their bench to get to my seat at one point. And I see Morgan first. And then I see Tanya, and then CD sees me, and I kind of had a jacket on. I opened it up to show them the sweatshirt, and they all died. Like they all loved it. Yeah, of course. You don't.
They're probably like 2001.
Yeah, you don't
1998.
Before my class got to UConn, they were sponsored by Reebok, and I actually think they were sponsored by Asics, like just a couple years before
Wild.
that. Yeah, UConn wasn't. They weren't on the up and up like that at that time. My class gets there. We're now Nike. So this was like the first iteration of the Nike, like the logo, the gear, all of it. So this is like, I can't even tell you how, forget OG, it's like where OG meets vintage.
This is
It's
some grailed.
Yeah, I even had some stains on it, probably
stuff.
grilled cheese stains, let's be honest.
For sure.
There was shit all over
100%.
it. But yeah, I had to rock it. And it was really, like I said, it was more exciting seeing their reactions. And then I saw Coach Rayama after. And both him and CD were like, they
loving
loved it. Yeah, it was so funny.
Cute.
But yeah,
I
we'll get
love
into we'll get into those games. Before we do, what's cool about us recording on Mondays is every week there's going to be a new set of rankings out. So college basketball comes out, like I said, every Monday. So as of right now, UCLA is number 1. Texas dropped to number 6. Notre Dame moved up to 8. TCU dropped to 12. Iowa dropped to 21. And in the Women's Champion Classic, the Vols did hand Iowa their first loss of the season. UConn took down Louisville. I got to see both those games firsthand. I mean, very quickly, Tennessee plays an exciting style. I was sitting in our New York Liberty seats, which for those that know, they know. For those that don't, we sit next to the visitors bench, which was Tennessee. They play a style that if you're in those seats is really annoying. But I think for the viewer, is really exciting. They sub hockey style. It is a constant, like, wheel rotation of rotations. It's just constant.
Okay.
Players
so they're
are
up and down the court.
up and down the court. No, up and down from the bench, to the scorer's table, constantly. Constantly players just flying by us the whole time. I'm joking. It wasn't really that annoying. But it was interesting because they pressed for 40 minutes. They shoot a lot of threes. They actually didn't even shoot that well, but you could see that they wore Iowa down. And that was a big win for them. It was really exciting. You could see they have a new coach. She came over from Marshall, played that style there, had success, now testing it at a Power 5 school. So it was cool to see that and the excitement there. Then honestly, UConn took the court and it looked like a professional team had arrived. I go to a lot of UConn games. I've seen them play this year. There was something different about them in this game. I can't explain it. It was like a presence. They just, I don't know. They were on their bullshit that game. They were like on it. I don't know if it was Barclays, if it was Paige
They were in the
Shue.
big city.
I don't
They
know what
came
it was.
to New York.
They
Paige got her shoe.
were on it. And then to round out some of the games, Notre Dame beat Texas. South Carolina beat TCU. So it was a big week.
Okay. Well, this is perfect. It brings us to a new segment we're calling Sue's College Basketball Vibe Check of the Week.
What a great name.
Dun, 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 dun. It's really succinct.
Yeah. Got right to the point there.
Yeah, right to the point. Dun, 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 dun. Which 3 teams do you trust this week and why? Give us your vibe check, Sue.
Okay. Number 1, it is UConn. Not because I went there. Number 1, it is UConn. I'm telling you, there was just something different. They were so on it. Just the way they played, how deliberate they were in their play. Everybody looked great. Paige didn't have like an amazing night, but it didn't matter. Everybody else was just, wow, they just were so on point. I really was blown away by it. And I very rarely am, to be honest. I'm not usually that impressed.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, I'm actually a really
You're
tough
always
critic. Shocker.
Yeah.
I thought AZ looked great, which is a little sad because at one point she got bumped. I saw the play happen. She kind of either got a little bumped on her knee or just stepped funny. But what I saw was her drop to the floor, not dramatically, but just kind of go down. And then there was a little bit of fear in her eyes. There's nothing has come out on what if it's an injury, if it's not. But she did come out of the game and did not return. So TBD on that, but she looked great. I think the second team that stands out, I watched South Carolina absolutely demolish TCU last night, just handled them. I mean, just handled them.
And that chick dunked.
Yeah, Ashlyn Watkins threw it down. That was fun. Caught me off guard. Got me out of my seat a little bit.
Yeah,
so that was
contested
exciting.
too. I was like, okay.
Yeah, there was somebody right. I think it was Sedona. You got to make a business decision there. She didn't. It wasn't really a dunk on though.
Sedona got a poster.
Nah, she slid out at the end. She did. She did the right thing.
I'm calling it a poster.
I think the thing that stuck out there was South Carolina's depth. There wasn't one player that came out and took the game over. It was like there was a bunch at different periods, and then they just keep those players coming. So we'll get into more specifics as the season goes on who's standing out. But right now, it's their depth. South Carolina's depth is legit. And then Notre Dame took care of Texas. And what stuck out there was their backcourt. And now I think you're entering like a big three of backcourt. It was always going to be Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles. But now Sonia Citron has come in there.
I like her. She's fun.
Yeah.
She's fun to watch.
So the Texas game went into overtime. It was really exciting. All three of them played well. Hannah had the bigger game. But then they followed that against Syracuse, killed Syracuse. But they all had double-doubles. So when you have three players who can drop 20 and 10 on you at any point, and that's in rebounds, by the way, from your guard spots. That's special. So keep my eye on that as well. And I just want to give a quick shout to Stanford. They did not win their game at LSU, but honestly, they're probably kicking themselves. They had that game. So shout out to LSU for not giving into it. They forced overtime and then had control. But Stanford showed me something. So I just want to give them a shout too, which is really a nice little segue into Stars of the Week. What is it? My Sue Bird Vibe Check Weekly. Check it out.
Sue Bird College Basketball Vibe Check of the Week.
Boom. And what a great way to now talk about the Stars of the Week. I'll actually start with Stanford. So Nunu Amara had 29-13. She averages on the season 19-7. This is a post player that you probably didn't know. I didn't, because last year, she's playing behind Cam. She's playing behind Kiki. But her minutes have gone up. Her efficiency's gone up. Her numbers have gone up. And like I said, even though they lost in overtime against LSU, at LSU, she showed me something. I was impressed.
Good. Taking her opportunity. That's great. I love that.
Second Star of the Week goes to, of course, Hannah Hidalgo. Hard to ignore her performance. She dropped 38 rebounds and 4 assists on Texas. And what you noticed from the jump was this was just a player that was impacting the game on both sides of the ball. So even though I just rattled off essentially some offensive statistics, she causes chaos on the defensive end as well.
She's a menace.
So
she's a menace out there.
So that constant pressure is really gonna get anybody. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, she's really fun to watch too. As someone who's really just watching for vibes and entertainment mostly, and myself, she's like doing antics. She's looking at her hand after she has a layup. She's talking all the time. She's a menace on defense. She is just like everywhere. I do always love when you see, there's a lot of respect for like being great at something and doing that one thing and just dominating, but it is really cool to see in a team sport someone who just kind of like does everything. They're everywhere all the time. They're playing offense, they're playing defense, they're passing, they're scoring, they're rebound. They're like sort of just like at every level affecting the game in different ways. I feel like that's like a sign of like a great player in their sport, where like they know how to do all of the things in the sport, all of the different skills and the intangibles.
Yeah,
so
well, you said it. She made, I don't remember exactly what the shot was, but she made some shot and then she looked at her right hand like, oh, this thing's hot. I think it was like I think she like beat the buzzer in a quarter and hit a 3 or something. She was like, oh, this thing's on fire. And then later in the game, she made like a really tough left-handed layup and then still looked at her right hand. And I was like, the showmanship, does she even realize what she's done?
We don't know why.
Yeah, it was really
funny. We don't know why,
even
but we're
Rebecca,
here for it.
Even Rebecca and Ryan pointed it out. It was really funny.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Okay, well, more big games coming up this week. What game are you looking forward to watching? AKA, what game are we going to be locked in and watching?
Well, we have no plans on Thursday because on Thursday, December 12th, UConn takes on Notre Dame, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I'd be watching this game regardless. It is one of the few like tippy top 25 matchups this week. So definitely check that out.
In South Bend?
So yeah, it's in South Bend. I've already talked it up. It's clearly battle of the backcourts. The big question for Connecticut is if AZ's going to be available. But this is battle of the backcourts for sure, which means front court players, if they show up for either team, could have a big impact. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great matchup. It always is. We've got history. We go back. Not as far back as some people think, but we do go back.
A lot of history, a lot of hate.
A lot of history.
Is this a game that like I'm thinking Paige and Hannah in particular that they're circling and they're like, I am the best guard in the country.
Would you be? I think you could answer this.
Absolutely.
Is that how you do it?
I'm circling it. I mean, I feel like just personality wise, they're both doing it in different ways, you know?
But is this what you did? Did you ever do that?
Circled games?
Yeah, because of an individual matchup that
matchups?
you were going to exploit or try to exploit?
Yes, definitely. I definitely was
Care to share?
Well, there's certain ones that I'm like, damn, I got to go against this player. And like, they always have my number. So it's like a reverse circling.
But think back to when you're younger.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. I mean, there were certain players like at the international level. I'm like blanking on names right now, but like certain teams where you're just like, no, I want this matchup. Anytime I'm playing anybody who's inexperienced or young in the league, especially when I was like in my prime, I'm just like, let's go. I think just personalities too. Like I'm thinking about Hannah and Paige, and there's so much hype around them. Like anytime we would play Portland, anytime we were playing Portland when Sonnet was on Portland, because it was like, just like the shenanigans and the shit talking and like, you know, all the dumb effery around all of the games that is just like fun.
Yeah.
I feel like I always love that. They're like in South Bend. I feel like both teams have a lot to prove. You know, UConn sort of like a longer view, but Notre Dame having gone to the Caribbean and just like, it's like they went there. Did they bring their basketball? They didn't, but they seem to be back on track now. It just feels like a big game. UConn and
it's always a big game.
Notre Dame just like don't like each other. You know Muffet's going to be in the stands. Like it's all there.
Yeah, when I think back to college, for me, Notre Dame was like a budding rival. They beat us my junior year, which is Neil Ivy's senior year. They went on to win the whole thing. So they beat us in the regular season for like the first time in a bajillion years, and then they beat us again in the NCAA tournament in the Final Four. So that's kind of when the rivalry really started up. It was already like, it was moving in that direction. There were like big-ish games. They weren't what we circled. We circled Tennessee because that rivalry was already like a thing.
Yeah.
But the Notre Dame one started to take off. And so my junior year, really my sophomore year, playing against Neil Ivy, that was like, oh, she's the veteran point guard in the Big East, because we used to play them in conference. So she's the veteran point guard in the Big East, and then she took us down her senior year. So that was always like a little bit of a competition. But when I think back, it was really the Tennessee players. And like Kara Lawson was a year younger than me, so always going against her. And then April McDivitt was actually my year, and I played against her in AAU like our whole lives. And then again in college. So, yeah.
Neil being the head coach of Notre Dame now. And likely, and maybe not even a question, the best dressed coach in all of women's college basketball. Just
Heard it here first, Heard it here first, folks.
Especially at home. On the road, sometimes she does the zippy, but at home, the outfits are outfitting.
All right, now on to the intersection. This week we have a couple topics. First is that Caitlin Clark debuts at number 10 in Sportico's highest paid female athletes list, bringing in $11.1 million in total earnings. We will never pay dinner when we go out with her again.
Ever.
While Coco Gauff is at number 1 for the second year in a row, earning $30.4 million. We haven't gone to dinner with her yet, but also not paying for anything.
Also, Coco, it's on you.
In May, Forbes compiled a list of the highest paid athletes, and numbers 1 through 50 were all men. Ravens QB Lamar Jackson holds spot number 10. So Yeah, and he makes 100.5 million. So that's a big difference between number 10s on that list and then Caitlin being 10th on the other list. But anyways, I digress. Megan, all right, so when you look at this list, is it more about the gap between men and women? Is it more about like how the breakdown goes between, you know, marketing money versus your actual salary from your sport? Like, what are you seeing when you see this list?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I mean, to that point, maybe good news that Caitlin is at number 10 for women and she's making $11 million. Mm-hmm. Not bad.
Yeah. Legit.
Yeah, to me, I feel like I want to like shift people's perspective a little bit away from the constant comparison to men and men's leagues and men's salaries and what they're making. We've talked about this in you know, many times over like literally 10 years. But it's like just because you don't make, you know, LeBron James money or Cristiano Ronaldo money doesn't mean that you're not making any money and you're not successful. So I want to switch the perspective, or at least think about it in terms of the like year over year growth of this list for women and of women's sports and like what that means. So first of all, I'm seeing Coco Gauff making $30 million. Mm-hmm. And I think 9 of it was made
9.4
on the court. 9.4 on the court. So, you know, the other 19.6, did I do math
21.
right? 21.6. No, I didn't do math right. You know what I mean. Is off the court in the marketing. And I think you're seeing that, you know, across the board with women, is that the money that they're making on their respective court field, whatever, is less than what they're making in marketing.
Well, very quickly, just to add to this and give you more, the world's 15 highest paid female athletes will earn an estimated $221 million in 2024, which is up 27% versus just last year.
Right.
So that the number, it's like the proof is there.
The proof is in the pudding, right? And you're seeing it from not only individual sport athletes who have historically been able to bring in the bank for a little while, tennis, golf, you know, some extreme sport athletes or winter sport athletes like snowboarding or skiing, but you're seeing it in leagues now. I think Caitlin obviously is, you know, a special talent on and off the court in a bunch of different ways. But I feel like this means that the market is signaling that women's sports leagues are something that is on the rise and is like an investable area of growth. And like the ROI is there for companies and brands and like the marketing dollars. Obviously the TV deals have gone up for every league and every sport across the board. I think that is really important. I think for women, for a lot of different reasons, all the isms and all the things, the contracts always lag behind the marketing money and behind the sponsorships. And I think that's, you know, especially true for women in leagues because, you know, I can go out and sell myself, or Alex Morgan go out and sell herself, or Caitlin go out and sell herself. And sometimes the leagues are taking a little bit longer to sort of like catch up, or the CBAs have to be negotiated, or people are maybe, you know, brands or whatever more willing to invest in, you know, this one particular player rather than the whole league. But I'm seeing like the entire platform, the eyeballs, the marketing share of women's sports in general and women in sport in general, but certainly the leagues are like growing at a huge rate. So I thought this was a great report. This was like really interesting and like a shift, a big shift in sort of the marketing dollars and just the money in general coming into women's sports. So I was like clapping all the way. And yeah, of course, you're going to see like players making $100 million in men's leagues from their salaries and more off the court. But that just says to me, like, the NFL has been around for how long? The NBA has been around for how long? Mm-hmm. Like, some of these players are making this money in, you know, 75-year mature leagues that have had the ability to grow without all of the, you know, impediments that women's sports have had. But they've had such a longer time. But I look at it, I'm not even really looking at that. I mean, the numbers are important there, and there's something that we can sort of balance against. But I'm really looking, you know, to your point too, about the 27% growth and increase and a non-individual sport athlete, you know, breaking into that and being number 10 and still making $11 million a year. I think that's amazing. But yeah, how are you looking at, like, how do you see this?
Not much different from what you were saying. I more so look at it from a league perspective. And I think the thing in our country for women's sports that's been the most difficult is to have a league hit it big. We've had different leagues in, women's basketball, the ABL, WNBA, obviously. In your world, I don't even know all the acronyms. No offense. There's just been so many leagues.
WUSA, WPS, NWSL.
There you go.
There's a couple other ones.
Yeah, but to me, it's like for a league to hit it, for a league to be successful, for a league to have longevity, and now to see for a player in a league to be able to garner money off the court in this way, some of it is just because it's Caitlin Clark. Like you can't like remove that from the equation. But she also is a little bit of a catalyst because now that you're seeing brands invest in her, they know that she's going to be seen in the WNBA. And so those brands are now also going to invest in the WNBA. And it's going to just break the door open for all of this investment to come in. And that's ultimately how the league will grow. We've already got the media deal that we've got. So odds are salaries goes up. However the CBA negotiation ends up, odds are salaries go up. And that ultimately is what we all want. Because when the league is successful in our country, that to me is when it's we've really broken through in a different way. And it's not to say that all the individual athlete sports, like you said, tennis, golf, so on and so forth, haven't like held it down for so long. But a league, it just to me feels different. Because something that I've noticed or that I've learned in watching soccer, your national team is crazy popular, crazy successful. And you guys, speaking of holding it down, you've really held it down for team sports for such a long time. But in a way, you're just this, 20 or so plus roster. And, you're playing in the World Cup every 4 years. You're playing in the Olympics every 4 years. And don't get me wrong, I know you have, She Believes Cup sprinkled in there and different friendlies sprinkled in there. But it's not a league. So even though there was success there, which was a great sign, and I think, often I give you guys a lot of credit because when you think of women's sports and what's happening now, it does start in 2019 with the equal pay conversation and just the way you guys pushed. It still wasn't a league. It still wasn't a league. And so that, I think, is what's really exciting about this. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are players, I throw out some names that look like they're making big bank, but like the Asia Wilsons, the Trinity Robbins, they're not that far behind on this list in the marketing money. They're not. Just because they didn't make it doesn't mean they're making zero, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think to your point about the national team not being a league, but what it was a consistent platform that people knew where it was. They knew what was going to happen. You're going to play games. It's basically like a league within itself. It just only has one team. And then it's the Harlem Globetrotters. It's a traveling circus. I always said that. But it was something that brands knew that was consistent. And there was always going to be somebody that they could sponsor. There's always going to be an Olympics. There was always going to be a World Cup. And that's what I'm seeing. I think what's happening with, the NWSL, with the WNBA and other leagues, but particularly I think with the WNBA and with Caitlin Clark is like, brands now know that Caitlin and other players are going to be on ABC and 2 million people are going to be watching, consistently throughout a 6 or 7 month period of the year. So it's like, it's almost like the national team was kind of like this half version of a league because it was like a consistent team. And now as the platform starts to grow for all of these leagues, yes, spurred by star players and spurred by a long history of, this foundation really being set, brands have something consistent that they can really invest in. And I think the other thing
what I would add to that, I'm not like disagreeing. I actually fully agree with you. But what I would add to that, it's the WNBA and the NWSL have always had schedules and everyone knew where it was. Yeah. I would say that it's this perception, which you brought up earlier, around our leagues, around our players, and particularly in the like world of money. You literally said it. It's like so many times we were like, oh, you don't make LeBron money. Who the fuck does?
Yeah.
Literally 0.1% of people do. And there was just this perception that we didn't have a lot of money, that we weren't cool enough. I've talked about this ad nauseum, and that's where NIL has changed things. That's where a player like Caitlin Clark has changed things. On your side, there's a number of players who have changed that perspective, and I think that it's also more so a part of that. Whereas your national team, you guys got built up in a wonderful way opposite of that or outside of that.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing a little bit to this point now, there's more conversation around players making a lot of money and the money that they are making, whether it's from, sponsorships or NIL, whatever. But what I'm seeing in that list also You can look at like, oh, well, a lot of the women's athletes only make, this much from their salary. What I'm seeing is all that they're making in marketing. So that says to me, like, brands are already understanding women are marketable, like way more than men, frankly. But women are really marketable. Traditionally, there's been one or two that they're willing to invest in because they're going to, be the Alex Morgan or they're going to be the Caitlin Clark. But it's a lot of players now. And it's like now these brands are starting to, and the money and the investment is starting to come into the leagues where there's tons of personalities. Like you don't have to be, a brand doesn't necessarily have to go after Caitlin Clark or Stewie or Asia Wilson. Like there's a bunch of players, maybe the tier below that. Maybe they don't make the money that those top tier players make. But there's a ton of money and a ton of personality and like all of those things that are so marketable about women, the way that we're engaging, the way we can speak to things, the intersection of politics and culture and just like how dynamic we are. There's leagues full of players like that. And now there's so much more, there's so many more eyes on it. I think NIL has been a huge part of that. Obviously, the growing platforms of the leagues. But that to me was like a really positive thing, not to be seen as a negative. You could look at it like, oh, small salaries. But I'm like, no, these players are unbelievably marketable and these brands are already spending a bunch of money on these individual players. And now they're starting to broaden out into the leagues. And like that's going to take the whole thing up many levels.
Yeah. And not to beat a dead horse a little bit, but they're also spending money on the leagues. And I bring that
on
up.
the leagues.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're spending money on the players, which they always kind of have. We've talked about how it was almost like, I don't know, a gaslight in a sense to have the contracts we had in our leagues and then turn around and have company X pay us basically more than our contract to like
more.
Speak for an hour.
Yeah.
So that was always just living in the upside down. But I bring
Having
that up
your,
because
like, total
I want
income be like 5x the salary cap of the league. You're like, what?
Yeah. But I bring that up because I want people to know that there's actual data. There's now data, there's proof, there's numbers to support a lot of what I'm about to say, which is women's sports and women's athletes, right? And the leagues. The brand loyalty is like through the roof.
Crazy.
So when a brand supports an athlete, and now they're finding when a brand supports a league, the loyalty they get, the return, the ROI, right, that they get, the money they get back essentially, is even better than what they see on the men's side. But we've always had to kind of hammer home is the whole idea of reach versus engagement because men's sports is bigger. It is more popular. Yeah. They do have more viewership. So that reach is bigger. So even though women's is smaller, although it's growing and we're getting there and we're beating men in some categories, the engagement of the fan is the percentage is nuts. So brands are really starting to understand, learn that, and now are being strategic with their investments. And I think that to me is also what this list, a couple passes away is saying. And that's really what I love about it. But also, listen, tennis is continues to hold it down. 9 of the world's 15 top earning women's athletes are members of the WTA Tour. So they're the ones that have always led the way and they're continuing to do so. So yeah, dinner on them.
I mean,
dinner
you'll see me at
them.
the U.S. Open. It's fun.
It is fun. It is fun. Support for A Touch More comes from L'Oréal Paris. If you're looking for holiday gift ideas that'll really make your friend's face glow with joy, with excitement, you name it, L'Oréal Paris has exactly what you need. Gift the athlete in your life the L'Oréal Paris Infallible 3-Second Setting Mist to help set their makeup even on the sweatiest of days. Or for the friend who lives under constant cloud cover and rainy days. I'm that friend, thank you, Seattle. The Lumi Glotion is the perfect gift. It can be used as a primer, highlighter, or a bronzing drop. It's an all-in-one choice to get that natural sun-kissed glow even when the sun is nowhere to be found. There's also the Bright Reveal Dark Spot Exfoliant Peel, your professional peel in a bottle which fades post-acne marks, smooths skin tone and texture, and brightens. Or the Revitalift Triple Power Moisturizer designed to reduce wrinkles and firm and brighten your skin in just 1 week. So no matter who you're gifting this holiday season, you can give the gift of confidence with any of L'Oreal's innovative skincare products. Because you're worth it, and they're worth it. All right, we're going to start incorporating a little bit of a fit check into our intersection. We love to talk about fashion. This week's news is around sneakers. We've had one big drop and then just some news in general around sneakers. So we'll start there. The Sabrina 2 is the most worn current new basketball shoe across the NBA. I know, Megan, you've got thoughts around this. Let's hear it.
Well, I just absolutely love to see it. And I'm not shocked by this at all because, first of all, this is just like a very successful business strategy coupled with Sabrina's already existing popularity. I think her time at Oregon is so synonymous with Nike. She's basically been a Nike athlete, her entire career. But this is such proof. First of all, Nike has been knowing how to do this the whole time. This is Nike. This is Jordan Brand. This is Kobe. This is Just Do It. This is literally their bread and butter, right? So what I am so excited about is that they applied it to a woman and to a sneaker and to this business brand strategy. And like the proof is just in the pudding. Like you put all of their brand weight and the sort of proven marketing strategy that they already know, and it sells. And like, it's just so exciting to see. And I just love it so much. I think what probably people don't know is like there's a few marquee signature athletes for brands, whether it's Nike, some have signature shoes, some don't. But for the most part, like even if you're signed with Nike, you're wearing the shoes that you're given for the most part. I think Kobe's have been popular for so long, and particularly, in all honesty, after Kobe's death, I think so many players like even wore them even more, but they're really hard to get. I feel like that's what I'm hearing.
There still are 3 of the top 5. So the Kobe 6 is number 1, the Kobe 4 is number 4, and the Kobe 5 is number 5.
Right. So it's obviously a comfortable shoe. People love it. I think people like the low top. The Sabrinas are similar to this. But they're less available and they're harder to get. So part of the marketing strategy or part of the brand strategy and the sales strategy really of the shoe was to seed this as like the shoe the sort of like generic shoe that everybody is wearing. You see a ton of NBA players in it, which is really cool. I don't want to go too much like into the male gaze, like, oh, it's important that like they like it because it signals success or it signals like respect for the women. Mm-hmm. But like, it's just a good shoe and there's a ton of them wearing it and they're on TV all the time and people are seeing them. So
I put the shoe on. I have not played in the shoe. It was after my time, but I put the shoe on and it is comfortable. It is a very comfortable basketball shoe. Like you can tell immediately. And I'm actually really particular about that. And so, like, I don't need orthotics. I'm in there, raw dog, you know what I'm saying? And I don't need anything. And I know I can feel it. And it's a very comfortable shoe.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's a great shoe that I think a ton of people can wear. You see it on a ton of NBA players. You see it on a bunch of WNBA players. You see it on a bunch of college teams. And what that signals to me is like, no matter where people that are buying the shoe are seeing it, whether they see it on an NBA player, whether they see it on Sabrina herself, whether they saw the commercial, whether they see it at their college team that they're going to watch or whatever it is, they're seeing it everywhere and therefore they're buying the shoe. So that to me is like culturally important, that it's not just if you're going to a Liberty game and you're seeing Sabrina play, that you're seeing it in, the one of 2 or 3 or 4 colorways. It comes in every single colorway.
Yeah,
so it's like, it doesn't matter.
Colorways.
Yeah. It's like, there's tons of college PEs. There's tons of colors out. So I just love that Nike really did it. We've been asking for this for a very long time. We've been, honestly admonishing them for a very long time of just like, use the strategy that that works. That's like really important because you already have all the proof in the pudding that you need. And like, to no one's shock here,
you've had pudding 3 times today. I just want to
really
point that out. Yeah, you've been proofing in the pudding a lot.
Well, the proof is in the pudding.
I know. Is it?
I just feel, sometimes
chocolate? Is it the swirl? I was a big fan of the swirl.
Yeah, I think it's a swirl, but I do like a chocolate pudding, or like coconut. Oof, so good.
Yeah, what?
But the proof is
I'm
in fact
picturing
in
like
the pudding.
Jello,
like Jello
pudding,
like the foil peel back.
Yeah, that's literally what I picture every time I say proof in the pudding.
I love that. You're like,
Oh, you're picturing like
strategy.
bougie pudding, and
Sabrina's
I'm picturing
business strategy working.
Yeah, like my pudding cup.
Yeah. But I love it for so many reasons. Most of all, it's just that it's proof of concept for other women athletes that are going to be getting their signature shoe, and just proof for her. I mean, honestly, I would love to see her royalties check
Yeah,
on this.
no, she's
this
killing
is going to be huge. And then that just continues to spur the business. This is obviously a really successful shoe. She's a really successful player, WNBA champion this year for the first time. Like, that brand will continue to grow, and they'll continue investing in that, which is basically investing, of course, in her. And I love that she's probably making bank from this, but like continuing to invest in women's basketball and in this way. And they're going to have obviously more shoes coming.
You bring up a good point, which is Asia Wilson is going to be following Sabrina with a Nike signature shoe. So I expect it to do just as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
On this list that we keep referring to, and we want to give a quick shout to Kick Stats for this info on Sabrina's shoe. The boardroom put this one out, which was, like I said, the Nike Kobe 6 was number 1, Nike Sabrina 2, number 2, Nike Air Zoom GT Cut, number 3. At number 4 was the Kobe 4. At number 5 was the Kobe 5. And I just want to say that because at number 3 was the GT Cut. And that is a version of a shoe that dropped a couple days ago for Paige. And Paige has a PE, and she's the first college player to ever have a PE. So very quickly, for those that don't know, so PE, I've always said player edition. Some people say personal edition. I think it's interchangeable. Today I might use personal, which basically just means you get to like Nike ID the shoe in a sense. It's way more intricate than that. You work with the design team. They put your story on the shoe. Nike always does a really good job, I always say, of taking words, your own emotions even, and how maybe you see yourself or how you see your career or your game, and putting it into design. And I actually had the experience of doing that with my own PE. I wore a Kyrie that had my PE, and it was such a great experience. And I got to talk to Paige, like I said, a couple days ago about her experience, and it was very similar. And so her shoe has her different area codes on it. It has a quote that she lives by on it. She got to pick the colors, which don't have like a specific significance. She just really liked them, and they looked great. I saw them on court.
Is she going to be able to wear those colors? Because all I ever see at UConn is red, white, and blue.
It is so funny that you said that because A, it tells me you didn't watch the game the other day.
I must have been busy traveling or something.
So A, you didn't watch the game because not only did she wear the shoe, which everyone can give it a quick search. It's like got some baby blue and some purple in it. So yes, very outside UConn colors, very outside the traditional red, white, blue, cannot deviate from this mantra. But the whole team wore them. The whole team wore them.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute.
The whole team wore them. And you know what's really, this is actually even cuter. It's the one thing I will share about my conversation with Paige. She kind of looked at me and she was like, what do you think of, what do you think about this? And what do you think other alumni think about, like, basically like the coach? She's like, the coach is like letting us wear this. I was like, oh my God, we love it. Stop it.
We love it.
We love it.
We love it.
You're we?
No, I'm saying you. As we.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I like to hop on when things are fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
did you
it's
say
funny-
you're
but I'm saying-
welcome?
No. It's funny that you even noticed that
Immediately.
like, it would be a big deal because that is how Connecticut rolls. Like very, nobody stands out essentially. But I thought it was wonderful that they let the players wear the shoe in a game. I know Paige was super excited. Her whole family was there. And just to keep going on this whole like PE thing, I'm going to explain also very quickly the difference between a PE, right? So a PE, like I said, personal edition, it was the Air Zoom GT Cut 3. And Paige got to put her design onto this pre-existing shoe. Whereas when you have a signature shoe, you're coming in like at the ground level. You are building this shoe. This shoe will have your name on it. It'll be called the Kobe. It'll be called the Sabrina, so on and so forth. And that's kind of the difference. Both can be sold. Both, assuming contracts are right, players are going to get royalties for both. But there is a difference, and that is the difference between a PE and a signature shoe. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more signature shoes. This does, bring the question of what is being cooked up for Caitlin. She had
Where
some
is
PEs.
it?
She had some, listen, what people don't understand is Caitlin had Kobe PEs
Crazy.
this summer. And that is, that is like an elite status. That status to get a Kobe PE is crazy. You mentioned it earlier.
Vanessa don't play.
Yeah. which she shouldn't. I'm like still on that seating list. Every time I see her, I'm like, yo, thank you. I know I don't play basketball, but I do work out in them. Really appreciate it. But you just want to have them. They're that kind of a shoe. And so for Caitlin to have Kobe PEs is pretty dope. But I think we all are wondering and expecting some news in some way, shape, or form around what's going to happen for Caitlin's signature. So we're all wondering for sure. But that's the sneaker news of the week.
This is a little, it's on topic, but it's off topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to bring it up because I think you have one of the sickest PE lineups, but that nobody really knows about. I feel like, honestly, it came a little early, as a lot of things in your career did. I know, baby. You like really is... It's tough. And they were Kyrie's, and there was a lot of controversy around him and Nike and all the things. But I think we need to get people tell us in the comments or the 1-800 number, whatever it is, if you want to see Sue's lineup of PEs. You have some of the dopest PEs like ever. I mean, I don't know all the PEs. I feel like a lot of them are just like colors and numbers, people's numbers on them. But you did some super cool designs that like you spent so much time on. There's ones like dedicated to your nieces. There's ones from your favorite movies. There's like, ones that like totally involve like your brain or music or whatever. So we need to get all these lineups because they're super dope and like
so the one
fire.
So I do have like God, now that we're talking about it, it's almost as if even within the PE category, there is two different types. So there's the one that Paige just dropped, which is, as I said before, you meet with the design team, you do a whole thing. And I do have two Kyries, same model. It was actually the Kyrie Low, I forget the number, same model, but two different versions. And that's the one where you're talking about. There's one dedicated to New York, essentially. It's kind of the color of the Statue of Liberty. And then there's one dedicated to, I mean, you said it, my brain. It actually has a brain map. I would have described myself as a cerebral player. So it actually has like a brain map on it. And there's other little nods to different things. So that's my version of like a Paige type PE that got sold. And yeah, it is sad because Kyrie's no longer with Nike. It'll never come back out. There'll never be like a drop years from now. So I guess maybe I'm holding on to like a few of the last ones, which is kind of cool.
No, literally. I mean, it's probably you and PJ Tucker have the only ones.
Probably, yeah.
He probably just has them somewhere.
He does have them. I think
he probably had them before you.
Or yeah, right, exactly. I think he either wore them or warmed up in them. I can't remember, but he does have a pair. But then I do have a ton of is every now and then Nike would reach out and they would kind of like, oh, give us some things that like are meaningful to you. And they would just kind of whip something up on their own.
So cool.
And so I do have a bunch of PEs like that. I have two that are dedicated to The Karate Kid. It's like one of my favorite movies growing up.
Those are good ones.
I've got some that are more about my nieces. We watched The Incredibles together at one point. So they did like an Incredible themed shoe. And that's just in the last couple of years that I can think of. Yeah, I've got ones that go way back. So yeah, maybe
we need to bring those pictures out of the archives. I know you have them all, but people need to see them.
I know,
they
good times.
They need to be in the streets. They're great. No, it's super cool. Honestly, so happy for Sabrina about the success of this. And just like, I think it's so great for women's sports. I think it's great for Nike. I think it's great for her. Love it. And then, Paige's, that's super cool. And look at these old dogs learning new tricks at UConn. You thought you would never see the day. Someone wearing pink and
well, I hope that goes viral. You calling them old dogs.
Well, I mean, they've been there for 40 years. Are we going to be able to buy the Paige PEs? I mean,
that's the point.
Preferably, I'd get sent a pair of Paige.
That's the point. She has gear. It came in like a
women's
bucket.
8 Paige.
I know. If you're lucky, you'll get sent the bucket. It came in like a bucket. She has like a whole merch-ish line. They take her last name, Beckers, obviously, cross out some letters and make it say Buckets, which she was like, everyone mispronounces my name anyway, so it's probably better. They can just call me Paige Buckets.
It's literally
By the way,
better.
this does also make you wonder, like, where is all of that for Caitlin? I feel like I'm expecting merch too. Oh, hopefully it's coming.
Why don't they even have just like sweatshirts out?
Something else I do want to say that a lot of people don't realize, it takes time. Now, Caitlin has been a pro long enough, but it does take time. It takes years to build a signature shoe. Do you know that? It takes like 2 years.
I do, but Caitlin has been burning up these airwaves for the last 3 years.
We're all expecting great things, and I'm sure Nike will deliver.
So I'm like, Phil, where is it, girl?
I'm both like confident that it's coming, and then also like, well, when's it coming?
Yeah, when's it coming? We want it. I want the merch.
Yeah.
I want all of it. I'm going to buy it all. Well, I want to be sent it all, but I'll buy it if I.
So that's what we got for y'all in the what will be called. We're working on the title, fit check maybe, but definitely some sneaker news. And now we're going to move on to Megan or Sue responses. It's time to check back in with Are You Megan or Are You Sue from the Thanksgiving table. Last week we asked you if you're a Megan, who is Hawaiian rolls, or Sue, who is biscuits and Hawaiian rolls. But I'll rep biscuits for today. And we actually have some voicemail responses, so we're going to take a listen to those.
Hey, my name's Blake. I'm calling to let you know that I don't think biscuits or Hawaiian rolls are the winner for Thanksgiving leftovers. I think it's good old-fashioned New York rye bread. And in terms of normalizing sandwiches on Thanksgiving, my stepdad, as long as I've known him, has required rye bread at the Thanksgiving meal to make a sandwich. But really why I'm calling is because I grew up in Plainview, New York, a town over from where Sue grew up in Syosset. And on the last episode, you mentioned Zorn's, and it just brought back a flood of memories. So true shout out to Zorn's. I used to love their mac and cheese. Thank you so much for bringing me that flood of nostalgia. Have a good one. You guys are the best.
Hey, this is Susan from Columbus, Ohio. I would say in the case of the biscuits or the rolls, it's always going to be both because the more the merrier. But also had a funny story about these rolls that our family friend made like 20 years ago. We've always thought, oh, we should ask her for the recipe. Come to find out this year, those rolls were from the frozen section, and she just kind of put a little extra butter on there, and that was the secret. So semi-homemade for the win. Thanks for this wonderful podcast and this crazy-ass time. Just a little bit of levity. Loving it. From one Sue to another, thank you so much.
Yeah, Blake. Blake knows Zorn's. That's all that matters. I didn't even hear the rest. Rye bread, whatever.
I mean,
what about
stepdad for
rye
the
bread?
win.
No, let's just talk about Zorn's.
Stepdad for the win. Just holding down forever. Just being like, no, we have sandwich materials at the Thanksgiving table. I love that. Cute,
Zorn's
though.
is amazing. I never had the mac and cheese though, so maybe one day we'll road trip it out there. Get
I
some
love
mac and cheese.
the flood of nostalgia that brought.
I
Blake.
know.
That's so sweet.
And then
Just right from
Susan,
the town over.
Susan has given us love for bringing some levity, and then also just telling everybody what we already knew. Just add butter to something, and it's going to make it elite. Let's
I
be
love
honest.
that this person has just been a liar cook for forever. It's just
Come on, you don't have
anyone.
anything like that? Like I used to make slice and bake cookies, like Pillsbury slice and bake cookies, and pawn them off like I was bringing them fresh out the oven, which
Like you've been
technically,
whipping them.
yeah, technically
They are. They are.
I was
fresh
a
out the
master
oven.
at that though. It's all about when you take them out.
I mean, really, what I'm sort of getting from these voicemails is like, we need to do a national campaign to have that meal just really become a sandwich fest. Full stop. Okay. We also wanted to revisit another moment from last week's episode, which actually came up in our couples therapy, which actually comes up in our relationship often. It's taken Sue 8 years.
Did you just steal my joke? I said that joke earlier, then you just
Well, this is another thing that
swooped
comes
it?
up in our. It's
Just literally
that comes
took
up in
it?
our relationship.
I know 50% of the pod is stuff I told Megan right before we walked in the door. And she just takes it.
It's a mind
And then
meld.
you go,
How am I supposed to know what?
thoughts? I'm like, well, I just heard my own, so not really.
Let's just listen to the
And I would say
voicemail.
like 25%.
It's not a voicemail, actually. Let's just listen
I was like, what?
to the clip of myself walking right into myself.
So even if it hit her arm, fell to Lindsay, and Lindsay scored.
But they already scored.
Oh, it's just that's it.
Well, yeah, because what's the point of taking a penalty when you already scored? I think that's the rule. I mean, honestly, guys,
Honestly,
I don't know.
This is where you're so tricky. I ask you questions. It could be about soccer or like, did you pick the dry cleaning up? And you come across so confident.
No, I think it's because it's the same team.
but
Now,
you
if
actually
it
don't know.
if it
Just say
accidentally-
I don't know.
Well, if it accidentally hit Lindsay's hand and then she scored, yeah, you got to pull that back. But
no, you're just making it up. Are you making this up?
was this a setup?
It was not a setup. I just want the record to show. It was not a setup. Nobody set you up. You set yourself up. Because this is what you do.
Yeah, I don't know what happens. I'm just like,
You don't want to just start by saying, I'm not sure, but I'll give it a go. Listen, I do it too. Everybody does this.
I
it's not
don't
unique
even
to you.
ever think.
You just don't, look at you. You just don't back down once you get caught.
I don't
And
even
that's where
ever
it's like-
think, do I know this or not? I just am like, what's the best answer I can give?
And our couples therapist told you that's probably not the way to go through life.
It's not the way to do things.
This did come up. We were
Turns
actually just
out.
jokingly telling her. But then she was kind of like, well, let's talk about this topic. And I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
let's.
so funny.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's. Yes, let's.
And it's taken you 8 years to
but
figure it out.
bump.
Now you're not going to believe anything I say.
I already know not to. Joke's on you. Took me only 4 years. No, joking.
Fair.
We did have some of our viewers chime in on this, though. YouTube comment from Captino with a K, 15. What are the results of the VAR on VAR? You did. We needed VAR for your VAR. What is the rule? I thought I knew the rule until I heard Megan's explainer. You and me both, Captino. My take. Handball on defender, striker scores, the goal stands. Did you actually, do you know now? Do you know the rule now? Or are you going to word salad us some more?
I don't know the rule.
Okay. From Instagram.
How unsatisfying was that? See, wouldn't it be better if I just like gave a best try? No, I don't know it. Honestly, some of the rules with VAR, I'm just like, does anyone know it? Does anyone know the rules? But I don't know the rule. But thank you, Captino15.
We did get another message off Instagram. This was about something else we talked about. So from Instagram, Aussie Austin, Texas, said, I love Sue's idea of going straight to penalties after a draw in friendlies. That's what I'm saying. Great opportunity for players to practice under game conditions and for fans to get a result. It's a win-win. So Megan does have a take on this whole, it's great for players to practice their PKs under game conditions. So I ask you, would it be better to have game condition, like the pressure of a game to practice? Or are you giving up too much by showing the other team and then essentially anybody who picks up that film and watches it, showing them your strategy?
Well, that was kind of my original, even when we like very first talked about it, that was sort of my original like comeback of just like, I don't know, you're giving up a lot. But I don't think it really holds that much water. I feel like it's kind of weak. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of interesting, especially for just friendlies that like don't mean anything. It's like a little something extra. I mean, penalties sometimes are just like annoying too. It's this whole extra thing. So if you're doing it after a game, that doesn't really matter. Like, is that annoying for both teams? And you're just kind of like, ties are ties. Like, but honestly, if the
It's
bonuses,
a friendly. Does that record?
if the bonuses were tied
I was
to,
just going to ask that.
if the bonuses were tied to a penalty win in a friendly, I'm like, let's go.
Question.
Let's do it every time.
I can't wait to see if you actually know the answer. Do wins and losses in friendlies count against your record in terms of world rankings?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
then that might change this whole PK thing. So
Yeah.
maybe
I
you
mean,
do
maybe
it, but
they're
it doesn't-
weighted
Maybe
in
it's
a
like just
different
for
way, but
TV.
yeah. I'm kind of into it. I'm into the
But if it-
growing
if a-
entertainment, like
but if
changing the
instead of
game and
a-
rules.
But if
to
instead of
do
a tie or
entertainment.
draw, whatever you call it, instead of that, somebody would have a win or a loss. It
Yeah.
would take away your tie, your whole tie point system thing.
Yeah, you couldn't do it in the league because
No, I get that.
that's like totally outside.
it sounds
the,
like even in the
whole
world
scoring
rankings.
structure. But I feel like that could be cool.
Okay. All right. This was great. This sparked some interesting conversations. We love hearing from you. So keep it coming. Leave us a message at 1-833-a-touch-8 or leave us a comment on YouTube and tell us what you think.
All right, that brings us to a touch more.
Just a touch more, a little bit. Just a touch more.
Yeah.
The W's next expansion team debuted their new name, the Toronto Tempo. That's how I'm reading it.
Okay.
Toronto Tempo. It's kind of a mouthful. Thoughts?
Toronto Tempo. Oh, yeah. We got the Tempo tomorrow. Yeah, we're headed up to Toronto. No, I think it's good. It works.
Do you say Toronto or you say Toronto?
I don't know. Toronto. Definitely. Hard T.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a Toronto.
You're a Toronto?
Toronto tempo.
Maybe that's
so
why it's
kind of
in my-
roll. Toronto tempo is a little tough with
Oh, no. Toronto tempo? Okay, yeah, I hear it.
yeah. Toronto
Okay.
tempo. I kind of like the name on its own, tempo.
Yeah, tempo works. Honestly,
Yeah.
here's my thoughts. There are so many names in the world of sports that when you really look at them are weird.
That's not where I was expecting you to go. Weird.
The New York Knickerbockers, the Knicks. We know it now. So it's not, it just rolls off. You don't even think about what is a Knick. Every now and then that question comes up. It's probably like in trivia night from time to time.
Totally.
But you're just like, oh, the Knicks, this is normal. So when it comes to new names of teams, I'm always just like, it'll be fine. Some people have such strong opinions around whether it's tempo, Valkyries. It's like in 5 to 10, you're going to be looking at that the same way you look at the Los Angeles Sparks. You ever like zoom out and you're like, Sparks?
What? Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
You know? So, and the Spark, I don't think the Sparks is a weird name because I grew up with it in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it came out when I was like 16, but still, I essentially grew up with it. So that I never have a strong take on the names. But I'm going to throw it back at you. What did you think of the logo?
Wasn't great. I'll say that. In this
Really?
day and
I
age
don't think
of, I don't like it. First of all, it just reads New Balance.
A lot of people have said that, yeah.
It's giving 1990s. I made this on my computer.
I know, I don't mind that.
I feel like I like the maroonish, but then it's like maroon and gray. It's really
Wait,
muted.
it's maroon? I didn't even catch that.
Ish. Right?
Hold on.
Something.
Well, I don't know if you know the minor controversy that it got leaked. Like not leaked. It got the WNBA has a drop down menu.
Yeah.
And it was like listed there and somebody caught it. And you know how the interwebs are, forget it. Someone caught it and that was it. It was everywhere. So who knows if they were necessarily ready or positioned to announce when they did. Oh, I see now. Yeah, it has like a maroon and a baby blue. Oh my God, why did I feel like I only saw it in black and white?
You know, now that I'm looking at it, I mean, part of it reads...
It's going to become normal in 5 years. In 5 years, you're not even going to...
Part of this reads or gives like YMCA team.
It looks good on a t-shirt.
Part of it feels really retro. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I like the retro feel. Sometimes
I don't know, the
WNBA
ball
logos.
and the T, I'm like, this just looks like, this is my 6th grade YMCA team.
But
then I don't know.
Harsh.
But then I'm kind of into it too. So, but it does read heavy New Balance.
You're being harsh.
I'm just saying, this is what it's giving. These are just my off the dome top.
Okay, I'm looking at a graphic that has all the WNBA logos kind of like side by side. And the one thing that does stick out is it's a little more basic. But a lot of WNBA logos are pretty busy. But a lot of them are actually upgraded. I'd say, honestly, almost all the WNBA logos are not their original. I think maybe the Mercury's, it's original. I don't even know. And then some of the newer teams have their originals, or maybe the Mystics is an original.
I agree. And I
like
actually
Storm
don't.
is a new logo.
I don't always, I don't love the new palette of sports teams upgraded. I feel like they're all kind of like put into this like clip art thing that's like they all sort of look the same, but it's all like similar. So this actually is a deviation from that, which I do like.
It doesn't have like bells and whistles, but then when I read the release, there is meaning. A lot of it had to do with the 6. Some of it had to do with it says Toronto's team logo features an italicized T inside a basketball circle with 6 lines protruding from the left side of the circle. Tempo representatives voice that the lines represent the team's 5 players and its local fan base. So obviously the sixth man, if you will. And then also, Toronto is in the 6. So there's that connection.
Maybe it's the
like
colors.
The Raptors.
Like what colors are they going to be?
Looks like maroon and baby blue.
I want to see a baby blue, like a heavy baby blue with maroon accents. That would be, as a jersey, that could be cool.
That could be cool.
It does have a real retro feel.
It does.
actually,
It
when I'm
does.
looking
It
at
definitely
Yeah.
does. Yeah, maybe I should have
that's
said
cool.
basic. It is more just like retro, which I kind of
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. It'll be interesting to see what their city edition will be.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
love
So
it.
that's that. Toronto Tempo.
I like the name, though. I like the name a lot. Tempo.
In the building. I like it too.
Let's go Tempo. Flows.
All right, moving on. Morgan Tuck was recently named the general manager of the Connecticut Sun. We obviously know and love Morgan. She was on the Seattle Storm when we won in 2020. That was the bubble season, so we really got to know Tuck well there. But she also won 4 national championships as a player at UConn, played her first 4 WNBA seasons with the Sun. She got picked 3rd overall there. Obviously, like I said, came to Seattle. And she's been with the Sun front office since 2021 as director of franchise development. And then she was assistant general manager the past 2 seasons. What I love about this is A, she's deserving. B, it's a former player staying in the mix. And C, she has had time, clearly since 2021, to learn, to develop her eye as a GM, and then now to be ready for this position. I think at times, you know, what can happen is people can get thrusted too soon. I'm not talking about Tuck specifically, but at times we've potentially thrusted people too soon just because we wanted, you know, a woman or a former player. And that can backfire if they're not ready. And I think this really kind of shows you or shows anyone the path of what could be. You learn the ropes, you kind of, you know, figure it all out. Like I said, develop your eye as a GM. And then when you're ready, you take over. And I'm really excited for her.
I love it so much. Congrats, Morgan. This is super cool. Similar to the feeling I had when we were at the NWSL championship of like there being so many more former players that are getting involved in the entire ecosystem and business around women's sports, whether that's, you know, having a podcast or working for the teams or coaching or being involved in one way or another. I think it's so cool to see so many people keeping their talents in the women's game that have been here. Obviously, you talk about all the time having that sort of expertise because you played and because you've been in it so long. So this is super cool. Obviously, she went to UConn and has a lot of roots in Connecticut. So I can't wait to see what she does. She'll have her work cut out for her with the very evolving CBA. This is the last year of that. And then like everything's basically.
Ooh, they also lost Veronica Burton. That was a big pick for the Valkyries too. That was a nice little pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be a loss for the Sun.
Watch this.
Tuck's probably on her bullshit right now, trying to figure it all out. So congrats to Morgan Tuck.
super cool.
Looking forward to seeing you in that position. And that's it, folks. We hit you with a lot of checks. We had the check-in. We had the new vibe check. We had the fit check. And now we're checking out. That's it for this episode.
Thank you to L'Oréal Paris for supporting A Touch More. The best gift you can give to a loved one is a reminder of their own worth. L'Oréal Paris has been reminding women that they're worth it for decades. This holiday season is your chance to share the message by gifting your favorite L'Oréal Paris products to the people in your life. Whether it's a Revitalift Triple Power Moisturizer to firm and brighten, or Lumi Glotion for the perfect sun-kissed glow in the middle of winter, now you can give the gift of confidence. Send L'Oréal Paris products to those you love. You can find your new favorite L'Oréal Paris products on Amazon.com.